Welcome. This is the first in a series of short videos summarizing the basic ideas and findings from the recently published second edition of our book, The Enthusiastic Employee: How Companies Profit by Giving Workers What They Want. I'm David Sirota, and let me begin this first presentation by telling you what our book and the videos are not about. They are not about how do you motivate employees. That's a question that is the topic of innumerable books, articles, and speeches about human performance at work. But it is precisely the wrong question. In fact, it is a destructive question because it treats employees as if they were inert. They have to be either forced to perform by threat or enticed to perform by a reward, a carrot, the promise of reward for being good little girls and boys. The right question is, how do you keep management from destroying motivation, destroying the enthusiasm that the great majority of people initially and naturally bring to their jobs? Our conclusions and recommendations are based on more than 40 years of survey research conducted by the Sirota firm. In that period, the firm has surveyed more than 13.6 million employees in 840 companies. Therefore, the book is data-based. It's empirical, as contrasted with the usual anecdotes and fashionable management fads and theories that come and go. Our many findings and their implications for management will be summarized in this series of videos and are described in great detail in our book. Among the most central of the findings is what happens to the morale of employees over their time with the company. A key finding is that morale starts high with new employees and then declines considerably. The vertical axis on the graph on the left is overall satisfaction, and time with the company is the horizontal axis on the bottom. You can see the drop-off. Employees come into a job enthusiastic, eager to learn, to get to know their new company and their new coworkers, and to perform, indeed to go above and beyond the formal requirements of the job to prove what they can do. But then things happen that depress or even destroy that initial enthusiasm. The decline in morale and enthusiasm that you see on the chart would be even greater had many unhappy employees not left the company. You can see a slight uptick after 10 to 15 years. Many of the employees who stayed have moved into higher level positions, and by virtue of that are more satisfied. And let's face it, to stay with a company for many years and say you still dislike it doesn't say very much positive about your judgment or your abilities. Your ability, for example, to get a job elsewhere. It's important to point out that morale doesn't necessarily decline to negative regions of anger. In most cases, it's to moderate satisfaction. It's an okay place to work, or to neutral. It's a job. The decline in morale is often attributed to a honeymoon effect. But that is belied by the fact that employees in 14% of the companies stay enthusiastic. The honeymoon lasts throughout their careers. So what? Does it matter to a company's business success that employees are not enthusiastic? It matters tremendously. The two major determinants of business success are the effectiveness of the business strategy, which is largely a matter of the business competence of senior management, especially the CEO. The morale and motivation of the workforce, the willingness of the troops to carry out the strategy to help the company meet its business objectives. It doesn't do a leader much good to say charge, and nobody is following, or is following lackadaisically. We are interested in the conditions that cause people not just to carry out their tasks because they have to, but because they want to, indeed carry them out with enthusiasm. By the way, let's not get hung up in semantic and academic debates about differences in terms such as engagement or morale or commitment or enthusiasm. We are talking about employees who care, period. Organizations where employees care and care throughout their careers is not a fantasy. It's not a fairy tale. Such organizations exist, and they are extremely important to understand. 3 that we write about extensively in our book are Southwest Airlines, Costco, and in the not-for-profit sector, Mayo Clinic. These are all extraordinarily high performers in their industries and are so in significant measure because of policies and practices that result in highly committed workforces. Are those just isolated examples chosen to prove our point? We and others have done quantitative analyses over numerous organizations, ferreting out the relationship between morale and performance. Those data will be the subject of our next video. Our book and the videos in this series are designed in large measure to answer the question, what do these high-flying companies do vis-a-vis their employees that brings them so much success, and success over decades? Or, to put it another way, what are the policies and practices that sustain the enthusiasm, loyalty, and commitment with which employees first came to the company? That is what we will be communicating to you in a practical way in this series. We will show how in both large and small ways these companies treat their employees as genuine allies in the enterprise, rather than as enemies or children or ciphers. By ciphers, I mean a faceless commodity. We call this a partnership culture, and as we shall see, it is the true and major differentiator between these extraordinary organizations and their competitors. Partnership has both financial and non-financial components. On the financial side, for example, it is not treating employees as nameless, disposable objects, laying them off at the first whiff of trouble, no matter how slight. And examples on the non-financial side are providing them with the job autonomy and recognition they require and deserve for top-notch performance. The partnership culture will be described in great detail in an upcoming video in this series. Our next video will show the hard data demonstrating the remarkable relationship between the enthusiasm of a workforce and the long-term performance of their company.